And it looks like we are live. We're going to give Bawana Beast at John K MHH just a couple of seconds to get the green light on the Superfan group on Facebook. And it looks like we are good to go. Mile high hello, everybody in Broncos country. Welcome into another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. I'm your host, Lance Sanderson, and joining me as per usual is my good friend and colleague. He is Mile High Huddle senior NFL draft analyst, the one and only Erick Trickel. Erick, what's up, dude? How are we doing today?
Doing actually extremely well. I mean, got my lightsabers that my wife ordered for me for my birthday back in January. They finally came in. I'm super excited for that. I mean, I absolutely love them. They're sitting right next to me, and they hardly ever leave my side when I'm at home. They're awesome. I definitely have some pictures of them up on Twitter and a video and everything. So if you guys are curious about them, go ahead and check that out. Not going to show them off on here because they're a little loud and the light and everything, man. I can show the handle. I'll show the handle off and everything. They're 46 inches long total. But yeah, nice little sleek handle. Can screw off the bottom end and screw something else in and combine the two. And yeah, man, super excited for that. Being able to add more to my obvious Star Wars collection around me in my office. And it's been an interesting week for Broncos. It's been an interesting week overall. And I'm excited because we're finally in the month of April. It's draft month. Like, yeah, man, this is pedal to the metal draft content at this point forward.
Yeah, I'm super stoked. I got a couple more scouting reports done the other day. I've got 4 or 5 more planned over the next few days as well to get in for you guys. Super stoked about the draft right now. There's a lot of juicy rumors rolling around with the Denver Broncos potentially maybe wanting to move up to number 5 overall to go and target a quarterback if the guy falls. There's some talk about the Broncos maybe even trading back to get out of the top 10, potentially to target a linebacker. Like, there's a lot of juicy rumors going around, and this is exactly what you live for, guys. Draft season, heading into draft season, especially in the month of April, this is the greatest, man. John Juno, what's up on Facebook, guys? I'm going to say hello to the chat really fast here. Before we get into this, we've got David Scott Sandoval up on YouTube, Ernie the dude on Facebook, man. Super good to get you on the show again. Always positive, man. This guy loves Drew Lock. He loves the Denver Broncos. He puts out just random players and says he loves the Denver Broncos, the greatest podcast. Love Ernie. Thanks for joining the show, man. Muhammad Badri jumping in here with the super chat early, saying hello, friends, with a couple of hearts. Love the get up there. You've got the huddle up hat, the huddle up the hoodie there as well. Dave Glassman jumping in here on Facebook as well, saying happy Friday, Broncos fans. Hello, everybody. And again, like I said, welcome into the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. Really interesting stuff today from Chad Jensen on milehighhuddle.com regarding Drew Lock and how the Broncos were almost in a trade scenario with Drew Lock. Speaking of the Broncos quarterback, he cited an interview that Michael Lombardi told the Irish NFL show on Friday, that it said, quote, John Elway drafted Lock. I'm sure in John's ego is bruised quite a bit from not being able to solve the quarterback problems. I mean, since he's been the general manager, other than the Peyton Manning era, he's not been able to solve the quarterback issue. And I'm not sure that bothers John. I think that George Paton, wants to hang on to Drew. I think they had Drew traded away midway, early part of free agency, but they slept on it over a weekend, and then they backed away. Now, Erick, knowing some of the things that you know about that kind of a situation, what did you take away from Michael Lombardi's comments?
I think that what it is that more same of kind of what we know. The Denver Broncos, they're wanting to upgrade the quarterback position. They've made no bones about that. They know that Lock has to get better, and they feel that at the very least they have a somewhat capable quarterback in Drew Lock. So them not wanting to trade him away, I think it's just them wanting to go and just get away of somebody that they have and just being stuck with like Jeff Driscoll and Brett Rippon. They want to see if they can kind of get something out of Drew Lock at this point. And so that's what it comes down to me. It's just that there was interest in moving him. There was interest in moving him before. I think that it's just they don't want to do it until they possibly have another quarterback in play that they would hopefully have be an upgrade over Lock. That's all it says to me. Nothing.
Yeah. Not really. I mean, there was a report a while ago that the Broncos were obviously within the trade for Matt Stafford there when he was still in Detroit. The Rams obviously made that trade. That George Paton offered, like there was multiple different reports, and it's very unclear as to which one is actually the most accurate one. There was one that said there was a first-round pick, a third-round pick, and Drew Lock to Detroit. And then Detroit came back and said that they were wanting a first, a second, a third, and Drew Lock, and potentially even Jerry Jeudy as well. There was another report, I think this one was from Benjamin Albright, that said that the Broncos and the Lions, the Broncos had offered a trade. It was a swap of picks, swap of second rounders, and a third round pick for Matthew Stafford in a third or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but just the fact that Michael Lombardi, and regardless of what you think, this guy's pretty plugged in across the NFL. He's pretty in touch with everything. And I see in the shop with Willie jumping in here saying, can we please stop taking Michael Lombardi seriously? I mean, there's something to that. Michael Lombardi was with the Broncos for a long time there and was fired by Mike Shanahan because he didn't have any actual information. He was supposed to be the insider across the NFL. But still, just the fact that he had this information and put it out there that the Broncos were kind of shopping Drew Lock there for a minute, and to see the action speaking louder than words with what George Paton is doing, going into all these pro days, being involved in every deal, making phone calls on Mitchell Trubisky, even though nothing went with that, Matthew Stafford and everything. It's very kind of noteworthy to me, even though it doesn't necessarily mean that anything has really changed.
Yeah, I mean, it's just yet another rumor involving Drew Lock. And it's just, as I said before, it's just more of the same as what we've known. And I think that we'll continue to hear these different kind of rumors and speculation and all this stuff like that. But I think that what we know is what we know. The Broncos, they want to upgrade over Drew Lock. If they can't, they just want to bring in competition for Drew Lock and try to hope he bounces back. That's all it is. Like, and I think that Michael Lombardi, I think he gets information, but I think that sometimes he takes shots in the dark and tries to basically throwing stuff at the wall and seeing if it sticks, and not trying to take a shot at him by any means. But this is something that I've seen shot down. The stuff with them wanting to trade him for Matthew Stafford, I've seen that shot down by more reputable Denver sources. So this is one where it's just maybe there's something to it. Maybe a team called Denver and they just like, all right, let's think that over. But I don't know if anything was close. I don't know if there's really much desire to move on from Drew Lock at this time. Maybe if they do get up for Justin Fields or Trey Lance or one of the quarterbacks, maybe that changes during the draft. Try to recoup a pick that they sent away. I don't know. I just think right now it's just a thing of there's enough there with Drew Lock that they can try and get something decent out of him this season. But there's enough questions about him that they're still looking to upgrade.
Yeah. I don't know. There's everything that we're seeing right now, and the Broncos are in actually kind of a really tricky situation because where they sit in the draft, obviously they're outside of potentially getting the top four quarterbacks unless they want to make a move up. All of the free agent options have dried up. There's a couple of trade options out there. Sam Darnold's one that I like. I know Eric doesn't like that one personally, and we'll have a conversation later down the road again. Gardner Minshew is another one. Nick Foles is potentially an option. Like the options are running kind of thin right now, so that does also kind of give you a hint as to how George Paton views Drew Lock, just because they think that they have a quarterback that they can work with here. They're not in such an eager mood to move on from him. So I think that there is something in there with Drew Lock that they kind of want to hold on to him and see if he could potentially develop. Kind of like as everyone's really kind of known. They're not really looking forward to get rid of him. But guys, we gotta stop this conversation for a little. We'll get back to it on the other side. We got some really good stuff for going for you today. But guys, we gotta give a shout out to our presenting sponsor, Manscaped. Guys, 2021 off on a rough start. We're in April now. The vaccine is out and people are starting to get out and about, but they might have let themselves go, especially with our grooming, especially men, single men as well. And the easiest way to get yourself back into tip-top shape is with the performance package from manscaped.com. Eric, what do you got for us today?
Well, as always, I have their nice little toiletry bag that's called the Shed. And in it, I've got a bunch of different stuff. I've got their reliever that just kind of is a nice little smoothing feel for downstairs. A little bit deodorant that's actually nice and pretty good smelling. But of course, the prize of it all is the Lawnmower 3.0 that also comes in this nice little carrying bag, of course, that you can stick inside your toiletry bag. But it's really nice to use. It's really simple. It's smooth, easy to hold design. And one of the best things about it is that it comes with a little light on it, because obviously when you're working down there, you don't want to nick anything and you want that extra light to help you see. But yeah, it's a lot of awesome stuff. I mean, I love the toiletry bag, and if you do a lot of traveling, it is the perfectly sized toiletry bag for all of your toiletries. And then another thing that you can get to is a pair of briefs that are probably the most comfortable pair of boxer briefs that I own. They're super soft, super comfy, just amazing quality of boxer briefs.
Yeah, man, I'm actually wearing them right now. Like, quite honestly, I got my shed performance kit the other day. It's right here. I've got the lawnmower. I've got the weed whacker, which is the nose hair trimmer. I've got the Shears 2.0 kit that Manscaped was kind enough to send us. It's a fingernail clipping kit. All high quality stuff. I've got all the colognes and perfumes and everything that they've got, the toners and whatnot. Really just great stuff. But guys, the easiest way to get your hands on this is manscaped.com. Use a promo code HUDDLE at checkout, guys. You're going to get 20% off and free shipping. Again, high quality performance, precision engineered performance tools for all of your male grooming needs. I use mine for my beard. It helps really well. Even cut, it's easy to adjust to the lawnmower 3.0. You get the right length that you want. Does just an amazing job for you. But again, guys, manscaped.com, use the promo code HUDDLE for 20% off and free shipping. Your family jewels, your boys, and your wife are all going to thank you and appreciate you for that.
Or significant other.
Yeah, significant other, whichever your significant other may be here. I'm going to grab a couple of super chats here. John Juno jumping in here with a $2 super. Who's the best quarterback after Lawrence and Wilson, Eric?
Well, the next best quarterback is actually between Lawrence and Wilson. That's Justin Fields. I think that he's closer to Trevor Lawrence than quarterback 3 is to Justin Fields. I think that Zach Wilson's being boosted up because don't get me wrong, he had a really good year. But I think he's getting boosted up just because that the team that's probably going to pick him, not going to say for sure, is sitting there at number 2. And so people are correlating that to being him the second best quarterback. I think that he fits what the Jets want to do the best, which is why they're looking his way. But yeah, to me, he's not quarterback 2. He's not even quarterback 3. He's my quarterback 4, which if you watch the Trickel Zone on Saturdays at noon Eastern, you would know that because I talked about that last Saturday, actually. But yeah, it's Justin Fields for me, and I think it goes Lawrence, like Lawrence, like Justin Fields, then like way down here like Trey Lance, and then Zach Wilson a little bit below that, and then a pretty steep drop off to Mac Jones. That's how I would do the top 5.
Well, that's interesting because everybody pretty much in their dog is saying that it's Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson, and then there's some other people that are saying that Zach Wilson is quarterback 1 in this class. So for you to have him as quarterback 4, even below Trey Lance with that inexperience, I'll say it like that. I don't necessarily know that raw is the right term there. Inexperience is probably the one that you want to look at. Raw does not mean, or inexperienced does not mean raw. Raw is there's a lot of tools and everything like that. He's just got to figure out how to put it all together. Trey Lance has a lot of it put together. It's just there's not a whole lot of experience with him. So, I mean, there's a lot to like with the guy. But have Zach Wilson. Go ahead.
Sorry, I can get into why Zach Wilson's quarterback 4, and it's really not that overly complicated.
Right.
I mean, it's just at BYU, they played a very easy schedule in 2020, and that's when he had his big rise after a really rather bad 2019 where he dealt with some injuries, and he barely faced any pressure. And what pressure he did face, he didn't look good at. He made more technical mistakes, more mistakes with his reads. Like that's just problematic. And especially with coming to the NFL, it's a similar story with Blaine Gabbert. And when pressure came to Blaine Gabbert in college, he, for lack of a better way to put it, he was kind of a coward and would kind of hunker down and just just kind of like shy away from the hits. And Zach Wilson, he's not quite at that, but it's concerning enough with him translating to the NFL.
I see where you're coming from on that. I definitely do. That's a pretty good point. It's just, to me, I think that Zach Wilson actually has the best arm talent in this class. I mean, there's something to that, and obviously, arm strength does not necessarily mean arm talent, but that's a big part of it. And how the ball comes out of your hand, how effortlessly it makes it looks to throw the football. Zach Wilson, when he throws the ball just jumps out of his hand. It's like a rifle shot. Seriously, it's just amazing to watch the ball come out of his hand. So, I mean, that's just on one small part of it. But to me, I would have Wilson just a little bit higher over Lance, just because I think that, yeah, they both have similar arm talent, similar athletic profiles. I value that experience. And Zach Wilson was a 2 or 3 year starter at BYU. And yeah, they didn't play the best schedule, but still at the same time, I'll take that experience at the next level. Whereas Trey Lance only had 17 games, I think, and only one really true full season. He's only 19 years old as well, so he's got a lot of room to grow, and there's a high upside with him. But at the same time, give me the more polished prospect as of right now. I think that I'm going to lean that way a little bit more throughout the draft process, because upside is so hard to project. Let's move this forward really quick. Glenn Hauser jumping in here on Super Chat. The whole Drew Lock, quote, hater narrative is so irritating. Why is it being covered at every position acceptable, but not at quarterback? Hashtag we all want to win now. Eric, go ahead.
It's just, I don't really know what to say with it. It's how it's been doing this for as long as I have. Whenever you have a take that doesn't sit well with somebody, you end up being called a hater. I mean, I remember that I was called a hater a few years ago because of a player coming out of Ohio State named Adolphus Washington. I was called a hater because I didn't like his fit for the Broncos. I was called a hater because I liked what, I can't remember, another prospect, what he brought that same year, and somebody didn't. And I was called a hater because I wanted the worst for Denver in that case. Whatever your opinion is, you're going to get called a hater. It's just a word that's just thrown out. It's almost like generational talent when it comes to draft prospects, really.
Yeah. I don't know. Nick Kendall actually put out a pretty good tweet earlier today regarding Drew Lock. Go and check that out. About, if you're talking about Drew Lock in this draft class, you're talking about him in the same conversation as Kellen Mond and Jamie Newman and Kyle Trask, the day 2, day 3 kind of a guys, not with the top 5 guys. So take that for what it's worth, just a little bit. I'm not going to get into that whole conversation. You all know how I feel. If you don't, check out any Dove Valley Deep Divers over the last about month and a half, because I've gone on multiple lengthy diatribes of how I feel about Drew Lock. So we're just going to avoid that conversation probably for the rest of the day. Guys, before I get Jake here, I want to just offer out, we're kind of doing a would you rather tonight as well, and just draft mailbag. Bring all your questions, guys. Get creative with them. Get your super chats ready to go, as creative as you possibly can be. I've got one coming up the pipe here, and it's actually a very interesting conversation. So get those ready and get everything ready to go here, guys. Eric, go ahead.
So I just wanted to throw this out there. Chase Woolner is through that. I wanted to draft Lock at number 10. It's not that I wanted Denver to draft Lock at 10. I thought they would, but Lock was still a first round prospect for me. It's just he hasn't developed as I thought he would. And the fact that people take criticism of a Broncos player and call you a hater for it, it's just, yeah, it's just whatever.
There's actually the one that wanted the Broncos to draft Drew Lock at number 10 overall was me. I was pounding the table for Drew Lock at number 10 overall. And when they traded out of number 10, I was actually at the draft that year. When they traded out of number 10, I was actually kind of crushed, because I'm like, the Drew Lock's going to go. I thought he was going to be a Washington, at the time, Redskin, now the Washington football team. I thought that's where he was potentially going to be taken, and not Dwayne Haskins. So to me.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. Let's move on from Lock, because chat's starting to get a little agitated with each other, guys. Calm down.
Yeah,
it's a conversation.
Yeah,
we're gonna move on from Lock, so we're just gonna kind of avoid quarterback conversation for the rest of the night.
Right. Dehane, actually, this is from Dehane. What, I can't remember. William Fries, I think, is his name, on his actual name. Dehane on Twitter. Hit us up. Hit me, Nick, Carl, Eric, Luke, Chad, I think, as well, on this would you rather scenario. Would you rather that, assuming the Broncos trade back into the 15 to 20 area, would you rather draft Jamin Davis and Spencer Brown, or Tevin Jenkins and Baron Browning? Eric, I'm going to let you take this one away.
So the question is that I have is this talking about like moving down to 15 to 20 and then taking the other one at 40 overall? Because if that's the case, then I'm taking Tevin Jenkins and Baron Browning. If it's like just the second player a little bit later at some point, then I would take Jamin Davis and then Spencer Brown in the third. So it just kind of varies depending on when you mean to take them. I think that both of them have their ups and downs. I really like Tevin Jenkins. I like how he fits into the Broncos scheme. I just don't know if that they want to go future right tackle in the first round Especially a guy with like Tevin Jenkins who can come in and start right away. And then Baron Browning, I really like his fit with the Broncos. I like Jamin Davis is a little bit more just because it's more of a certain skill set. Baron Browning, I love versatility, but he just does everything so well that it makes it a little bit mucky trying to project him best into Vic Fangio's defense. And that versatility is great. But Jamin Davis, what he brings in coverage outweighs Baron Browning. So it really does. It depends on, is it at 40 or is it later along with that first round pick?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that one. And Wano jumping in here on YouTube saying that Jamin Davis is the best linebacker in the draft. And that's the new trendy thing. It really is. With Micah Parsons not being a coverage guy, potentially being more of an edge than a coverage guy. And if anyone wants to tell you and sell you that Micah Parsons is a coverage linebacker, please laugh at them and turn around and walk away, because he is not a coverage linebacker. Like, quite honestly, Jamin Davis is very versatile. He's got incredible speed. What he run, a 4.37 and a 4.42 or something like that at his pro day the other day. He does have sideline to sideline athleticism. He has that ability to drop back in a back pedal and cover in zone, and also turn and run with tight ends and cover in man. A little bit thin to me. I think he needs to add a little bit of weight and hopefully doesn't lose that athleticism to really help scrape through the trash and come down the hill in the running game. But at the same time, he's got enough thump to him that he's very good. Jamin Davis right now reminds me, Eric and I were talking with John earlier about how he is like the Patrick Queen of last year's class this year. Guy that, I mean, everybody kind of knew who Patrick Queen was because LSU was so good, but the way that he is shooting up draft boards, and as people start to fall in love with him more, Jamin Davis was, you could have got him, 4th, 5th round. And then he started testing and everyone started really getting to his tape, started getting some run on Twitter. And now all of a sudden he's potentially a top 20 pick. So to me, I agree with that. I would rather go Jamin Davis, but if we're going to go, what did you say? Spencer Brown. Yeah. I'd rather cornerback in the second round. And honestly, if you could drop down and double up on linebackers, I don't think that I would hate that either. If you went traded down, got Jamin Davis, and then in the second round at 40 or whatever, that extra second round pick you got, if you picked up a Jabril Cox and really fortified that inside linebacker duo for the Broncos, I think that might be a pretty prudent move for this defense.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that. And we got a super chat here from Glenn real quick with the $4.99 donation. Glenn, we appreciate the question, but as I said earlier, we're done with the quarterback talk for tonight. Chat's still kind of going at it a little bit, and we're just kind of move on. There's plenty of other stuff to talk about, plenty of stuff to talk about with linebackers, with the safety position. There's just so much with it that we just got to get this other stuff covered. And there was actually another question a little bit earlier that I saw that I really wanted to grab. And
hold on, I've got Muhammad pulled up here, and Muhammad said that this sticker is for Lance. Hashtag the king of the super stickers, because Muhammad Badri always jumping in here with the super stickers on YouTube and the $2 donations. Muhammad, I love it, man. I love the sunglasses. This is great stuff, buddy. I appreciate you. Eric, you got it now?
No, I still can't find it yet. Oh, well, it had to do with defensive backs, and let's see here. I'm still trying to find it. I really can't find it. There's been quite a few comments, and a lot of it lock based, but there is another super chat here from Aaron Lynch, $10. Says, if we stay at 9, would you rather pick up whichever quarterback is available or go best player available and pick up quarterback in later rounds? Always love it when I can catch a live pod. Cheers, boys. Thank you, Aaron, for your donation, man. We really appreciate that, as we appreciate every single super chat we get. If Denver stays at 9, I don't think that a quarterback will be there outside of Mac Jones. So I think that at that point, I think that Denver would trade down. And if they're trading down, I'm looking at like Jamin Davis or Jason Owe, possibly somebody like that. That's the way I'd be going. I don't think a quarterback will be there at 9. Not one worth taking.
So here's my question to kind of bounce off of that, because I agree with you. I don't think that at 9 you're going to get a quarterback. I think that Rashawn Slater would be a good option there at the offensive tackle position. Can slide in and play guard, can slide across and play left or right tackle or left or right guard. I think he can even play center. He might be the most versatile and obvious, and honestly, he might be the best overall offensive lineman in this class. So I would really be looking at Slater at 9 or a trade out. But at that trade out, Eric, let's see. Let's drop us down to number 20 overall, and let's say that the Broncos were to.
I want to make an apology real quick to Glenn. Glenn, I'm sorry. I just kind of skimmed over it and I didn't catch the rest of it. So apologies about that. He asks, would you rather trade out, pick at 9, or trade back? And again, I just thought that I didn't catch the trade back part. I thought it was just about taking a quarterback or trading up for one. Depending on how things fall out, I'd look at trading down.
Yeah. So I'm going to throw out a hypothetical situation here, and it's something that Eric, you and I have talked about privately, and with also Nick and Carl, with the Broncos and trading back. Let's say that the Broncos want to trade back to like number 20 overall with Chicago, and Chicago is going to come up and they're going to take McCorkle or whatever quarterback potentially would fall there if the Broncos are just dead set on trading out. And they said number 20, Nick Foles, Roquan Smith, and like a 3rd round pick. At number 20 overall, Jamin Davis and Jason Owe are probably still available. Which one would you rather draft?
What pick?
Number 20 overall.
Number 20 overall, Jamin Davis.
Okay. Any explanation as to that?
I think that he's more valuable there. Okay. So with Jason Owe, if I'd be looking at him, I'm looking at trading down somewhere 25 to 30. And then BX Bronco Jedi says, why Jason Owe over Azeez? I personally wouldn't take Jason Owe over Azeez Ojulari. My thinking is that by where I'm comfortable taking Owe, Ojulari wouldn't be there. So yeah, 25 to 30, I think that would be a good value for Owe. But at 20, I'd prefer Davis.
Okay, and I don't necessarily disagree with you. I'm not quite up to speed on Jamin Davis. I mean, I know enough about him and have watched him a couple of games of him. I'm just not necessarily sure that I'm ready to throw him up in that top 20 conversation yet. Honestly, if you're getting down to 20, I'd probably trade back again if you possibly can get into the late 20s and potentially go. There's another guy that I think that the Broncos like a little bit, even though he's a T-Rex, he's got a big head and little arms, and Nick Bolton, the linebacker from Missouri. He's a true downhill thumper. And quite honestly, if you want a highly athletic guy, without the coverage ability, and then also the off-field issues of a Micah Parsons, you trade down a couple times and to go get Nick Bolton, you're going to do well for yourself. But as far as Jamin Davis at 20 is concerned, I'm just not ready to go there yet. I need to go back and reevaluate. And I will say that out loud. I need to go back and reevaluate Jamin Davis again and take into the athletic testing a little bit more and really see how that looks. I would actually probably go with Jason Owe or even maybe Azeez Ojulari, because I think Ojulari is going to be there at 20. So you could probably go with Azeez Ojulari, but Jason Owe has the length, the strength, that athleticism. There's still some rawness to him. He needs to develop a little bit more. But the technician that he is, even at this particular point, there's a lot of upside with Jason Owe. And if you sit him behind Von Miller for a year and then reevaluate the situation there, I think Jason Owe might actually become one of the top edge rushers in this class. So I would go Owe over Jamin Davis there. But again, let me reevaluate that situation and we'll see there. John, do you have Stu Meat's sticker pulled up? Yeah, let's get that. Stu Meat jumping in here with the unicorn. Hey, who's the unicorn, Stu? Jump back in the chat and tell us who the unicorn in the room is, because if you're talking to Eric, the unicorn in the room in this class is actually the tight end from Florida, Kyle Pitts. That guy. Eric, why don't you run on Kyle Pitts for just a second?
So Kyle Pitts, he's just a guy who can do basically whatever you want for your offense. And my thing is I understand that people don't want to take tight ends, and I understand there's an issue of how Shurmur uses tight ends, but we saw him use more 2 tight end sets last year. And Drew Lock, when he was at his best, it was in 2 tight end sets. There's no Nick Van Nett now. And Albert Okwuegbunam, he still needs to develop. And anyways, Albert Okwuegbunam shouldn't keep you from drafting a player of Kyle Pitts' caliber. And there have been some rumors linking Denver to taking Kyle Pitts if he happens to be there at 9. He's just a freak of nature when it comes to it. I don't want to say he's going to be elite in the NFL. We don't know. Obviously, every single player has that risk. And then another issue is that here in a couple of years, you have to pay Noah Fant, and then a few years after that, you'll have to pay Kyle Pitts. And hopefully by that point, you have a quarterback figured out, and you're going to have to pay that. So it's a lot of financial issues. But Kyle Pitts, he's a guy who can do a lot for it. And if you added him and Shurmur was using more 2 tight end sets that we saw Locke be his best out of, there would be absolutely no excuse for Locke at that point. is either Locke steps up and becomes what a lot of fans and a lot of Locke supporters think he can be, or he fails and Denver moves on. I like it, but there's a lot there. And then Spicy Mike, since there's another one that's talked about a lot, he says, with all of Micah Parsons' elite athletic abilities, don't you think, if asked, pass coverage would not be an issue? Now, here's one misconception I see a lot every year, and it's not just from you, Spicy Mike, is elite athletic abilities doesn't mean good coverage ability.
Yep.
And I was actually, before we went live, before the guys joined, before we everything, I was watching Micah Parsons, and particularly the 2019 Minnesota Penn State game. And it wasn't his athletic abilities. They helped cover up some of the issues in coverage in college. I don't think they will in the NFL. And the problem is that he just doesn't have the reads. He doesn't seem comfortable. There were 3 or 4 times where he had a click and close to move up because he just overshot on his drop with the tight end who just cuts outside, that he stumbles. So it's just these, I don't know if he's smooth enough. He's athletic. It's great, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate well to coverage. And then since we were talking about Jason Owe, Joey said that I feel like Owe is a project. He corrected himself a little bit later. And he kind of is, but that's why you take one now. So our edge is one of those positions that you address before it is a need. They typically take a year before they really catch on. So take Owe now, have him sit behind Von Miller, and have Von Miller help develop him as he's done with Bradley Chubb and Malik Reed. And then you look at Von Miller as a free agent. Maybe Owe comes in and really shows this progress, or he's at a point where you want to get him starting. Then you can potentially dangle Von Miller on the trade market. You can let him walk after the season. You have all these options open up to you because you went to make edge not a need before it ever became a need.
Yeah. There was something in there that you'd said, and I wanted to really touch on that, but it went by the wayside. I was reading some of the chat, so I do apologize for that. We'll just jump into Chase Wellner here with the $5 super. Hey, fellas, if you could walk away with any 2 non-quarterbacks in the top 40, who would you pick? I'm going to take it away on this one for just a second. The 2 guys that I would really love to get in the top 40 is hashtag We Stand Grant in this household. Richie Grant is always going to be one. Another non-quarterback, probably Slater. Rashawn Slater is a guy that I really like. There's just so much versatility with him. He's got enough athleticism to move around. That's another guy. If the Broncos are picking at 9 and 40 and they walk away with Slater and Richie Grant, I'm about it there. Another guy, let's see here. Oh, man. Joseph Osai, but I think that might be a little bit rich now. I've been reevaluating that. Ojulari would be another one that I would really like there. Eric, what do you think?
Jason Owe and Jamin Davis. If Denver walked out of those 2 in the top 40, I would be a happy person. And it's nothing against Slater. I love Slater. He's my tackle number 2. And last week, or a couple weeks ago when we had Muhammad on, Muhammad ended up taking him at 9. And I not quite pounded the table, but I defended that pick. I think that is a good pick. But Jason Owe, I love the idea of pairing him behind Von Miller. I love what Jamin Davis can do on Trickel Zone. On the first episode of Trickel Zone, I compared him to Roquan Smith, and I stand by that comparison. So those 2 would be 2 guys that I would. And that actually reminded me of the question earlier I was trying to think of. And I can't remember who it was from, but it was dealing with guys who nobody's talking about in the draft that, like, after the draft or during the draft will start getting a lot of attention because of what they can bring or being the good fit or something like that. I can't remember the exact question, but it was definitely something along those lines. And we have a bunch more super chats here that we've got to get through. Jake King, any chance we could land a punt kick returner in the later rounds? Who are some you like? I actually really haven't broken down who can be a punt or kick returner. Jalen Darden, I know he offers up special teams ability. There's another receiver as well who I can't think of their name, who's another option that you can do for that. But I think that the Broncos, they're kind of looking at Tyreek Cleveland and Deontay Spencer for that role.
The one that I will rebut you on that one is there is another safety prospect at the top of the draft that has a lot of punt return experience at TCU, and Treyvon Morgan. Probably better suited as a single high free safety, but he does have the ability to slide down into the box and come and play a tackle down closer towards the line of scrimmage in the running game. Great angular pursuit, but he had a lot of punt return punt return run at TCU. So there's a guy there. If you're going to miss out on Richie Grant, Treyvon Morgan is arguably the best safety in this class. Not if you ask me, but there's a lot of people that think that Treyvon Morgan is going to go in the tail end of the first round. So, let's see here. Aaron Lynch jumping in. What is this?
We got that one.
We already got that one, John. I got one here from Gap. Go ahead.
Real quick, you were talking about Trevin Moehrig and his ability as a punt returner. Look, if you draft Trevin Moehrig, you're not using him as a returner.
Well, that's fair. I understand that. I get that. Maybe year one impact, sure, you could use him as that punt returner because you have Kareem Jackson and Justin Simmons, and you have that multiplicity. But I hate the fact that it seems like every single year the Broncos waste a roster spot on a returner that's not actually any good. Trevon Morgan's a fine punt returner, and as a starting safety, you don't necessarily want to put him in that kind of a situation. But if you're going to play and alternate to a single high role and move Justin Simmons down into the box and more of that Kareem Jackson role, I think that would actually work. I think you could do that and kind of preserve the longevity of him in that role and actually have a dynamic safety and a dynamic punt returner with elite ball skills. So I would kind of lean in that direction just because it saves you a roster spot at a position of where you might be a little bit weaker and give you a little bit more depth.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I'm all for getting a returner who's not just a return specialist that can offer up elsewhere. But you're not looking at a guy who you're taking early on that's going to have a big role on defense for that. I mean, if people remember back to last July and August, I was pounding the table for Deontay Spencer to be moved on for Tyree Cleveland because he doesn't offer up anything on offense, and that bothers me. You can't have you have 3 spots designated for specialists, not 4.
Yeah. Well, and another one here is KJ Hamler. The Broncos already have a dynamic kick and punt returner in KJ Hamler. He was really good at Penn State. So the fact that they didn't even put it back there, because I'm not exactly sure why, because Deontay Spencer was on the roster, who cares? Yeah, he had that big punt return against Carolina, but he's really been not good as a returner at all. So if you can save the roster spot on a Deontay Spencer who you used on 20 total plays on the season and outside of the return reps, where you have KJ Hamler with that offensive versatility. If you get Cortland Sutton back and you have KJ Hamler as a gadget kind of a player and then turn him into that punt returner, that might be the direction that the Broncos really kind of lean in. I'm going to grab this super chat here from Gavin Hull because thank you, John. Caleb Farley the other day liked my comment, come to Denver on Instagram. Gavin, obviously with the greatest profile pictures, man. I'm telling you, the smoking Drew Lock, and now you've got the gangster George Paton. This is just fire profile picture work, my friend. Caleb Farley, Eric, does the back surgery scare you? The one that he had the other day, that back surgery to go clean some stuff up, does that really scare you?
No. And from conversations I've had with people in media and people around the NFL, doesn't scare them much either. It was just a cleanup procedure. It was one that he knew he was going to have to have eventually. The only concern is, why didn't he do it earlier? That's the only concern I've had from it. But he's going to be ready to go for the season time. They're not concerned about lingering issues. Of course, the concern is if he tackles, will his back stay fine? That's the only thing that I've heard. But people who are smarter than me when it comes to medical stuff, they're not super concerned about it. I'm not either. I think it'll drop him a little bit just because you're not going to have him for any kind of OTAs or camp. You're not getting him until training camp. So that's the only thing I can see that's dropping him. And then Glenn Hauser, I may have gotten it confused, but he came in with a $4.99. Thank you, Glenn. We appreciate that. Says, who are top 2 or 3 prospects for each of you that none of us is talking about now, but will be all over by the time the draft rolls around? This is actually a little bit tough because
it is.
I try to make sure that all my guys I talk about. I try to make sure I do something in an article, talk about them on Twitter. Always something. I think Garrett Wallow, he's one that I've talked about quite a bit.
Yep.
I know that is he's one, I guess. I mean, sort of. Jordan Smith, an edge out of UAB, I think he's been talked about a little bit. Yeah, it's tough because, as I said, man, I try to make sure I get my guys, the guys that I pound the table for, those kind of guys out there and talked about and everything, just because they deserve to have some spotlight. And then Aaron Lynch said, trade back and get JC Horn, stack the secondary and get some draft capital. This is going to ruffle some feathers, but JC Horn isn't in my top 4 corners. I wouldn't trade for him, trade back and take him. Nothing against him. I think his play is great. I think he can be outstanding NFL corner in a very specific scheme, and it's not what Denver runs. And that just drops him. I value versatility at defensive back. The more schemes you can play in, the better. And I just don't see him having the versatility. And I am concerned. He ran a fast 40, but him running a fast 40 wasn't my concern. It was the agility drills that he chose not to do. And that sends up a lot of red flags for me.
I know where you're going with this as far as JC Horn and a very specific scheme and the requirements of his skill set, because he is just honestly, he is just like Patrick Surtain to me. He's more press man coverage cornerback than he is off ball man or off ball
or
zone.
Cover 3.
Or yeah, he's going to be a cover 3 guy. I could see him in Dallas really fast. The one that really intrigues me, not that they actually need it, but at number 18 overall, you got that extra first round pick this year because, I mean, obviously they traded out of number 3 to get to number 6, the Miami Dolphins. If they needed cornerback help, JC Horn and that press, the cover 0 scheme, the heavy cover 0 stuff that Brian Flores liked to do last year, you get JC Horn in that secondary as well. My God, that would be just the cherry on top, because they've already got Xavier Howard. They've already got Byron Jones as well. They need a third corner as well, but I don't necessarily think they're going to go in that direction. I think they're probably going to go and get Najee Harris there at 18. That's just something that I've been talking to a buddy of mine about. They're very interested in Najee Harris at 18. But JC Horn in that scheme would be just absolutely spectacular. This one actually, Andrew Switzer jumping in here on YouTube. Favorite sleeper cornerbacks you think will go in rounds 5, 6, or 7? Going back to the Glenn Hauser super chat of the top 2 or 3 prospects for each of you, none of us are talking about. I was actually going to go with 3 cornerbacks that I really wanted to kind of talk about. Robert Rochelle out of Central Arkansas. You've got Diamador Lenore out of Oregon, and then DJ Daniel, the cornerback out of Georgia. Those 3 guys, there's some versatility with them. They can play some press. They can play off ball. They have some good click and close. Not the greatest athletes in the world. DJ Daniel, though, actually had a pretty good game against, I think it was the LSU game in 2019 against Joe Burrow. Everyone was talking about Stokes and everyone was talking about Tyson Campbell, but DJ Daniel actually locked down, I think it was Justin Jefferson there for a little bit. That's a guy that I'm really intrigued by. Another one that's going to be, he's actually not in this class, and I'm not sure why I'm going to bring him up. Josh Jobe from Alabama is another one that I like there as well.
Yeah, we'll save that for next year.
Yeah,
we'll
sorry.
Save that for next year.
My bad.
Before I get to that question, I just wanted to give a shout out because he's my fellow asking. Hello from Homer. Welcome thanks for joining the show, Malcolm. It's always great to see you in here and seeing Alaska represented outside of just me. Anyways, for the sleepers, I think that James Campbell actually mentioned him in there. My biggest sleeper, if you're looking for a nickel corner late in thing, and we're talking about returners, Avery Williams out of Boise State. I love his play. Dude is like 5'4", not really, but he's just very small, very tiny, and feisty as all hell. Really love his play. I love the little guys with a lot of fight in them. That's probably why I like Nick a little bit. But
also why you probably like Elijah Molden as much as you do.
Yes, it's a big reason why I like Elijah
Molden. Go ahead, Eric. Sorry.
But yeah, he's one that I definitely would. He's one of my late round corners. I know, speaking of Nick likes Trey Brown. I'm not as big of a fan of him.
No.
But I think if you look into getting that to that 5th, 6th, 7th round, he's pretty good value there. And I think he can be a really good fit. I think he's more safety. But yeah, he's another one that I wouldn't mind.
Yeah. Base Gates jumping in here with a $3.99 donation. We appreciate you, Base Gates, with the big, huge taco eyeballs. Man, another glorious profile picture. Would you rather here? Sewell, Pitts, Slater, or Surtain at 9? Who you got?
Pitts.
Sewell. Actually, you know what? No, I'm gonna back off on that because I just said that Slater is probably my favorite offensive lineman in this class. Give me Slater or Pitts, one of the two. Pitts is just weird because yeah, you've got the 2 tight end sets, but he also does project very well at an X receiver. I think that he can line up on the boundary and just become a dominant threat as the X receiver. The problem is, Courtland Sutton is in tow, and Eric and I have had this conversation going on back and forth for a while now. Something I said back in January when we did our mock draft primer, or the draft primer show with everybody, with all the podcast co-hosts. Go check that out if you guys want to. Check really fun show. Talking about Jalen Waddle at 9. And the Broncos could potentially move on from they've got Deshaun Hamilton, who's on the last year of his deal. Courtland Sutton's in the last year of his deal, and Tim Patrick is in the last year of his deal as the restricted free agent tender. So taking a receiver at 9 doesn't necessarily sound like a bad idea as a future need. You stay cost controlled and stuff like that. So Pitts, I would love that with the 2 tight end versatility you got there. But George Paton absolutely is in love with Courtland Sutton. And I mean, we're talking all caps, asterisk, bold print, underline it 3 times, circle it, and arrows, neons, the whole 9, in love with Courtland Sutton. So to me, give me something that's going to get a little bit better of a need fit and go with a Rashawn Slater or a Penei Sewell, because you don't know what the situation is with Jawan James. And let's be honest here, Calvin Anderson was #not good.
Okay, so I'm going to drop a quick little fact. Todd Ostendorf, so we don't have an offense that uses 2 tight end sets at all. Not only did I mention earlier that Drew Lock was best out of 2 tight end sets, especially later in the season, Denver used 2 tight end sets almost 50% of the time over the last 6 weeks of the season.
Yep.
Boom. Shermer adjusted the offense, everything, and surprisingly, Lock actually stood to and got a little bit better. So yeah, he started using 2 tight end sets a little bit more, and obviously we got to question if it will carry on over the rest of the season. But I think that if they stick with Lock and he showed that was what he's best in, you got to stick with that. So yeah, Kyle Pitts, and he's not just a tight end. He also gives you your blocking tight end that Noah Fant isn't, that you lost with Nick Van Nett.
Yep. Trevor Sandell, I just want to give a shout out to Trevor really fast, jumping in on Facebook. Draft strengthening your strength. Trevor, thanks for joining the show, man. We appreciate you. He also said, I heard that too. I'm not exactly sure what he was responding to. I just wanted to give you a shout out for joining in on Facebook. Don't want to leave any of our supporters, especially Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, anywhere you're catching this podcast. We appreciate all of you. Jesse Edrick jumping in here on Super Chat with the $5 donation. Bold prediction of end of 2021 season. Vic Fangio and Pat Shurmur are gone. Ed Donatel stays. George Paton hires Clint Kubiak as the head coach, depending on the Vikings' offensive play. Clint knows George Paton's and the Broncos. What are your thoughts on that? I don't like it.
No,
I don't like it. I think that there is something to this relationship. I wrote about this a while ago, milehighhuddle.com, about the relationship that George Paton and Vic Fangio had. Just jumping into the way that they do things. They're both grinders. They like to watch a lot of tape. They like to sit down and just consume a bunch of football. And this is something I learned from Broncos Country Tonight and Benjamin Albright. Vic Fangio is actually a baseball analytics guy. He loves baseball analytics. He gets deep divey into some crazy things. But right when they did their press conference, it was a couple of about 6 weeks ago, I think is when it was. George and Vic were actually asked about their working relationship and how everything was going, and apparently it's going swimmingly because Vic Fangio actually likes to stay late. George Paton likes to come in early, and sometimes they'll cross paths where Vic Fangio will be sitting down watching tape and watching these college prospects, trying to develop some new schemes and stuff like that for his defense. And George Paton will be doing the same thing. They're sitting there talking back and forth with each other. They like that mentality, that grinder mentality, where all they want to do is consume a bunch of football. And they have that same kind of they're in lockstep essentially with what they think this team is going to look like. I don't think that Vic Fangio is on quite as hot of a seat as people want to put out there right now. I think that he might be a little bit safe unless this season completely tanks. But there might be a little bit of leeway with Vic Fangio this year. Eric, what do you think about that?
So my issue is that the NFL is about who you know.
Yep.
And obviously Clint, he knows the right people, with his father being Gary Kubiak. But the issue with that is if he comes in, he's going to want to bring in all those retreads of the Gary Kubiak offense that are terrible coaches, terrible position coaches. I'm not going that way. I wouldn't, if George Paton did go that route, I would be a little bit shocked and extremely disappointed. And it would be a sure way to kind of get me to quickly sour on George Paton and the job that he is doing. Now, I saw a question in the comment real quick talking about don't extend Courtland Sutton, just re-sign Tim Patrick. Tim Patrick is healthy or something like that. Here we go. It's Robert Kitchens. Why pay Sutton all the money he wants when we can pay Patrick for less money and he is healthy? He's also going to be 28 years old in November. And just health has been an issue for him as well. It's big reason why he went undrafted. And he's just, when he is good, or when he does play and everything, he's good. He's just not as good as Courtland Sutton is.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. He's gotten better as a separator, but he doesn't have that high end athleticism that Courtland Sutton does. He's not a guy that's going to just burn you with great route running, even though he does create a little bit of separation in that catch radius he has. To me, Courtland Sutton has an even bigger catch radius, a better ability to separate, more athleticism, and yeah, I'm not necessarily sure you want to pay a premium to a guy like that had one great year and then had a torn ACL. His rookie year wasn't great, but he was also fighting for reps between Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders before they traded those guys away. Just a very weird situation. Courtland Sutton, though, if I'm taking one of the two, I'm taking Courtland Sutton. Aaron Lynch jumping back in here with another $5 super. We appreciate you, Aaron, for joining the show, and everybody else as well. Thoughts on taking Jamar Jefferson on day two? Jamar Jefferson on day two.
Johnson.
Yes. Jamar Johnson. Wow. Okay. Jamar Johnson on day two. I think there's some value there and need to add a Kareem Jackson replacement. Eric, I'm going to let you take it away for a sec.
I love Jamar Johnson. If you want to see what he can do, you got to turn on. I mean, it's going to look bad for Fields, but you turn on the Indiana-Ohio State tape. Jamar Johnson owned that game. Like, he baited Justin Fields a lot, and he's got excellent range and athleticism, and he was able to exploit that. I'm a big fan of him. And day two, like, I'm down for it, and you guys are kind of getting me to spoil my mock draft that I have working on here. So, got to be careful with your questions, guys. I don't want to spoil the mock draft.
Yeah, Eric's got a mock draft dropping probably towards the end of the weekend, I think, is when you had got that ready to go.
Depends on what I get it sent in and when Chad publishes it, really.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
the goal is to have it up sometime this week, next week, before next Friday.
Right, gotcha. Let's see here. John Houston jumping in here with a $1.99 donation. Sleeping on Paulson Adebo and Elijah Molden. I don't think
How can I be sleeping on Elijah Molden, who I have as a top 50 player?
I was going to say, yeah.
Paulson Adebo, you can say I'm sleeping on him because I don't think he's good.
He's not good. He's not good. He's not athletic enough. He doesn't have the required hip flexibility. He's not a good mover backwards. He's just a guy. I don't like Paulson Adebo at all. Elijah Molden, I'm starting to grow on him. That slot nickel safety hybrid player that he can bring with him, because even though he is a little bit small and light in the loafers, he does play with an extreme physicality that I absolutely do love to see. There was a comment from Facebook saying something about Alaska. Obviously, Eric's up there. Malcolm Brown's and Homer. That's a guy that we get on every single weekend.
If there's more people from Alaska, shout out to you all. Like, y'all are awesome. Y'all are Alaskans. Alaskans are special.
Dehane jumping in here with a super chat after we shouted him out for his question that he threw out to us on Twitter. Marco Wilson, the cornerback, had great pro day numbers. Is he a fit for Denver, Eric?
He's a guy that maybe I would take late. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Chris Sims had him in like his top 10 or top 5 corners, and that's rather extreme for me. He's a guy that 6th, 7th round, I'd be looking his way. I could see him going a little bit earlier than that. But for Denver, I'm just not so sure for it. There is one comment here I want to get to real quick, and it's from Trevor Sandell. And Trevor, I hope everything's going good with your son, man. I know that there was some issues there, and hope you passed along our messages of support for him and everything like that. And he said, would you rather draft running back Travis Etienne or the kid from Buffalo, the MJD clone in the later rounds? Definitely the kid from Buffalo, because if you're taking Etienne, you're taking him in the first round, and running backs don't matter enough to take one in the first round.
I actually had an interesting question for you, and it really is all dependent on how you value it, like where you think the running backs are going to go. Whether it would be like a trade back to number 19 overall with the Washington football team and take Jalen Davis, or trade out of the first round completely and take a Travis Etienne or a Javonte Williams. That was something that I wanted to kind of bring up here. Base Case with a great great question here. How many hours do you guys spend watching film per day? And what's your typical day to day? Now, I'm going to take this away really fast because I'm going to let Erick just blow me away here. I don't watch tape every day. I don't necessarily have time to be able to do that. However, when I do sit down and watch tape, typically Saturdays and Sundays, and then Thursday nights, I sit down and watch some tape. Saturdays, I watch tape all day. Sundays, I watch tape all for the majority of the day. And then Thursdays, I'll try to watch at least one player for probably an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, and try to get as much as I possibly can. Now, Erick, you are Mile High Huddle's senior NFL draft analyst, and I know that doesn't sound like a lot. When I say all day, I mean I'm waking up at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm watching tape until about 5 when I have to start making dinner. Like it's an all day process. Erick, you doing what you do, please explain the amount of time that you watch tape on a daily basis, because I know it's wild.
So the best way to do this is just talk about a regular Monday through Thursday for me. And it's the same thing each of the days. It's different a little bit for Fridays through Sunday. So Monday, I wake up when my alarm goes off and I watch a player prospect before I get in the shower to get ready for work. Typically, I stand in the shower for a couple minutes to watch yet another player. Then I get finished getting ready for work. I get to work a little bit early, and I try to get in at least 2 or 3 more games before I have to actually clock in. Then when I'm on the clock, I spend probably 90% of my time of my 8-hour shift, 9 hours total there, probably watching players, probably 90% of the time, just because things are so slow. And then I come home, I spend some time with my family, eat dinner, and I don't watch any games during the night. Then when I go to bed, I probably stay up and watch a game or two before I fall asleep. Fridays, it's a little bit different. I still wake up, go to school, but I only work a half day on Friday. But I come home and it's pretty much tape until we go live. And even before we go live, I'm watching college tape in the green room before we go live. Then Saturday, I wake up, I watch a show or two that I'm really into right now. I'm watching Naruto, getting into that anime. And after I watch a couple episodes of that, it's college tape for the rest of the day, basically, until my wife gets off work. And same thing on Sundays. So I actually calculated it once. I put in like almost 100 hours a week.
So
like something like that. I can't remember exactly, but
Glenn, with a follow-up here, where do you get the tape to watch? We have a tape database that we subscribe to, or at least I do. Erick is a guy that, as far as I'm aware, you do a lot of YouTube, like YouTubing games and watching
Google searches for it, because there's other video softwares, YouTube, a database that I have people who also record games and send them to me for certain prospects as well. I have a lot of different things for it. Real quick, Jimmy Shore says Erick wants to be an NFL scout. No, I don't. I don't want to be away from my family for the majority of the year, and being an NFL scout to make less money than what I make now. I don't want to be a scout.
Yeah. Johnny Baki jumping in here. I see him. Shout out to Johnny, and I can't remember who it is that started up that other Broncos podcast. Shout out to him. Bronco _ Viking, I think, on Twitter. Give this guy a follow. He was at the 2019 draft in Nashville also. May have run into each other. I had my beard dyed orange and blue. I was actually behind the scenes. I had credentials. And in fact, I got to a place where I wasn't necessarily supposed to be. I walked back and I watched. So they were doing the cool videos where the players are like holding the sparkly football and with all the cool stuff behind them and everything like that. I actually got there and watched Christian Wilkins do his with his Miami Dolphins hat on, and turned around and walked up a ramp, and it was the doors to the stage. Like, all I had to do was push the doors open, and I was walking out to the podium. That was a place I was not so. Oh God, no, that would have been terrible. But that was a place I was not supposed to be at all. I walked through the wrong curtain and ended up taking the wrong turn, and ended up, kind of half purposely, but also not purposefully. I wanted to see where I could get to, and it come to find out it was good enough that I could actually get onto the stage if I wanted to. Rick Isidore jumping in here on Super Chat with the $5 donation. Trade back multiple times in the first round. Land in the 20 to 24 range. From there, we get needs filled and depth in the real strength and value of this draft. I actually agree with you on this one, Rick, and the strength and value of this draft. To me, and really in most drafts, yeah, you're going to get 4 or 5 blue chip players, and then you're going to have a couple of guys that are going to be really good players, and from 8 to 15. And then there's going to be some players that are going to get overdrafted, some guys that are going to be drafted for more need than actual their talent ability. And then you're going to hit about the 25 area. And then from 25 to about 50, 60, 70, that's where the true meat of the draft class is at, especially this year. There's a lot of offensive talent, especially at the wide receiver position, the offensive line, and obviously the quarterbacks. We don't need to talk about those guys anymore. But really, when you get to 25, that's where the running backs start to have value. That's where the safeties have a whole bunch of value. There's an extra handful of linebackers that have some really good value. There's a more offensive linemen that have value. That's where the interior defensive line class really gets to start. There's a bunch of edge players in there as well. Really, this year is incredibly accentuated on the fact that from 25 to 70, the value is just incredible this year. Eric, what do you think on that?
I definitely agree. I'm always for trading down. That's me. That's in my blood. I'd much rather trade down than trade up because I kind of have a similar philosophy as Rick Spielman of the Minnesota Vikings and that George Paton kind of brought over is the more darts you have to throw, the better your odds of getting hits. And that's my philosophy for it. And I just want to say, Jimmy, I know it was a joke, but there's people actually there that are serious about that. That's what I want to be. So it's not that I didn't get it. It's just I'm also weird with how I handle stuff. So no, I know it was a joke, man. I wasn't trying to be angry or anything about it. It's just that's not something I want to do. Wasn't trying to be defensive or anything.
So
and then
can I elaborate on that really fast before we get into this comment from Trevor? The being an NFL scout, this is something that I don't think necessarily a lot of people know. They call it the rule of 25 job. You're 25 years old, working 25 hours a day for $25,000 a year, and you're never at home. Yeah. So you are literally working all the time for little to zero pay. In fact, George Paton, when he was up and coming, he is a former scout. That's how he got his. That's where he got his. Started to cut his teeth in the NFL was as a scout. So I really kind of trust him in the draft process as well. By the way, just because of that. However, that's he was couch surfing for the longest time. I think out in California for a while. He was literally sleeping on other people's couches so he could be out and be a scout because he wasn't making enough money to actually live and get by. Being a scout is an incredibly difficult job that as much as fun as it would be to be able to go and do something like that, I don't know if I'm cut for that, man. I really don't.
And it's also a job where once you hit 25, you're done. Unless you are established in there, you're not getting in after 25 years old. And unfortunately, I'm a little bit over 25, unfortunately, if you can't tell by the gray hair. But anyway, Trevor, it's great to hear that he's doing good and everything like that, man.
Yeah, man.
Big kids.
Yep.
Wow, that's a lot. Glad you all enjoy football together. I mean, James said it in the chat. Family is very important to me. Nothing's more important than family to me. So good to hear that he's doing good and he enjoyed it and everything like that. And we still hope that everything gets better. And then Jimmy Shore, real quick. I wanted to be a scout or a trucker. Loneliness has followed me everywhere I go. This is hilarious to me because he's kind of a trucker.
I am actually a trucker. Not that we're supposed to do this. We're actually told not to. But I drive semi for a living for Coca-Cola, so that's why I don't necessarily have a lot of time to be able to sit down and watch as much tape as Eric does. Because if I did, then I would. So you're over the road for 10 hours a day, and then come home to. I have 3 kids and a beautiful wife. Hey, by the way, speaking of, we just got another dog today.
Kenai.
Yes, we got another dog. He is a pure blood husky. A buddy of mine moved into a new apartment, couldn't take his dog with him. He's an 8-month-old pure blood husky named Kenai, which if you know anything about Erick Trickel lives in Kenai, Alaska. So it was very coincidental.
You want to give out my address too now?
I don't know your address. You're fine. Come on.
But they know what I do. They can find me.
It's not that big of a deal. Does anybody actually want to go to Kenai, Alaska, or is that just the people that live
only
there?
During fishing season?
Gotcha. Okay. John in Houston jumping in here. Jango Fett is better than Boba Fett, in my opinion.
Oh.
This is the content.
I've seen a lot of bad takes this draft season. I mean, that's got to be up there. That's got to be one of the worst, man. Boba Fett's definitely so much better. So actually, in the movies and in the movies, Jango Fett is better because you obviously know more about him. But once you get into the legends and the books that include Boba Fett is such an outstanding character. And it's a shame to me that Disney just did away with all the legends because so much character development there. And I'm glad that he's been brought back. Spoilers on The Mandalorian, although by now I don't think I need a spoiler warning, but spoiler warning just in case.
I've never seen any of The Mandalorian yet, so I'll eventually get to it.
Yeah, you don't watch Star Wars. No one cares.
I have seen episodes 4, 5, and 6 technically. Ben jumping in here. I caught it this time. He didn't catch me. Given how many unknowns are in the draft, we could get some hidden gems in the mid rounds. And Lance, how did you get credentials? Actually, so what happened was my uncle actually lives in Nashville, and that was the year that the draft was in Nashville. And he offered me and my parents a place to stay. So I reached out to Chad and I said, hey, there's a possibility that we're going to be going to Nashville for the draft to at least go and attend it. And, just want to let you know that I could be doing like some live reporting down there and do like a pulse of the fans. And Chad was like, no, we're going to get you behind the scenes. I'll try to get you some credentials. So that was actually up to Chad. It wasn't up to me. But yeah, no, I've 100 pictures of the press room, the way that it was all laid out. It was one big long tunnel on the river opposite of Nissan Stadium, I think is the one in Nashville. This tent was, I kid you not, it had to have been at least 2 football fields long. And then they had the big draft podium right next to the bridge that comes over the top. And when you walk in, there was probably 15 or 20 rows of tables that were all, and there was one big aisle down the middle, and there were like probably 8-foot tables, 4-foot by 8-foot tables that were like 15 or 20 rows deep that were like 8 or 9 tables across with 2 rows of 9 tables run all the way down. There was a big black screen. The press conference area was right behind all the tables and everything. The TVs everywhere, fully catered. It was amazing to be able to go and do something like that. I will say it was very intimidating. That's not necessarily the kind of person that I wanted to be. I wasn't necessarily wanting to be that journalist. I didn't think that I was cut out for it. But to go back there and to see everything behind the scenes is a once in a lifetime experience that I will never, ever take for granted. It was so cool, guys. I wish that you guys could see what it's like back there. I actually sat across, so my seat at the table that I had was across the table from Phil Milani of Broncos TV at DenverBroncos.com. I sat and talked to Phil Milani for probably 45 minutes and just got kind of to know him just a little. It was really cool. Let's get away from that, though, guys. Sorry about that.
So, real quick, just so the issue of San Juan is, Kenai is a small town. It's very small. Yeah. Very small. Very small.
Jesse jumping back in here with another $5. Man, Jesse, thank you, dude. We appreciate you for that. Tough Borland versus Baron Browning versus Werner versus Justin Hilliard. Who's your pick? Also, is Afitu Melifonwu a fit? Also, how is Monty Rice? And is the Mac Jones at 3 hype real? There's a lot to dig through this. Erick, go ahead.
This is what, 4 questions in one? So for the first part of it, the Ohio State linebacker quadruple, whatever it is. Tough Borland is the guy I don't want to touch. Like, he's the guy who just doesn't fit the modern NFL role. Baron Browning is the guy I would take the most. Justin Hilliard actually after that. And Pete Werner to me is just Josie Jewell.
Yeah.
As for Ifeatu Melifonwu, I think he's a good fit. There's been some rumors about some character stuff that definitely needs to be checked out. But teams will have a much better idea than that than I will. Monty Rice, I like him, don't love him, not so sure for Vic Fangio's scheme. And from what I've heard with Mac Jones at 3, no, not real.
I'm going to agree with you. I actually wouldn't mind Justin Hilliard in like the 4th round. You miss out on Barrett Browning. I would go Justin Hilliard. To me, Tough Borland is undraftable. Afitu Melifonwu, Erick, you pointed me out to this one. And also I was watching some Andre Sisco the other day. Good God, I love that Syracuse defense. At least the secondary. Trill Williams, though, is probably a better fit than Afitu Melifonwu is because Melifonwu has the length, the strength, and athleticism. He's a little bit stiff to me. And I like he's scheme versatile. I think he's more safety than cornerback. So I would rather go Trill Williams there. Monty Rice I haven't got into, and Mac Jones at 3. Please, God, let it be true. I don't think it is, but please let that be true so the Broncos can potentially go and get go get like a Justin Fields or a Trey Lance. Like, honestly, Mac Jones at number 3 would be really the way to go. John, are we caught up on supers, or do we still got a couple more? It looks like we're good to go. There was one thing that I wanted to grab here from Andrew Switzer regarding a player that Eric really liked last year at cornerback. And guys, do you like Shaun Wade in the 3rd round for our defense? Shaun Wade was the cornerback, and he's probably going to be a safety at the next level from Ohio State. We need a backup for Callahan, and I hear Wade has some experience at safety as well, and depth would be great there. Eric, why don't you break this down before I get us out of here?
He would be depth for behind Kareem Jackson, and who can drop down and play the nickel. I'm not sure that he would really be a corner in the NFL. I like what he brings, but when he plays closer to the line, he gets worse. So he's much better off, which is why I think that safety is where he's going to end up being. But yeah, I wouldn't mind him. Maybe not the 3rd round. I think that he might slip to the 4th, and I'd be pretty good there. Yeah,
there's some physicality there. He just struggled so bad on the boundary this year. It was really weird to see. He plays better in the slot than he does on the boundary. So to see that makes me question some hip flexibility, and makes me question. I guess I don't necessarily know what else to drop him back to play a safety at that box hybrid role. That'd probably be his best fit, and I think that he would fit. I would actually probably take him in the 3rd round as well. If he was there at 71, or even if the Broncos traded back a little bit, got into the 80s, I think that would be a pretty decent pick there.
I wouldn't take him top 75.
Okay, that's a fair point.
Preferably not top 100, but that 76 to 100, I can see make an argument for it either way. But top 100, it's the best value, I think. We did have one person real quick. I'm just going to show him off. He asked about the Sabres. I'm not going to show it all of it, not going to turn it on, but there's the hilt. They're 46 inches long. I have a lot more on Twitter and everything like that. And you can always reach out to me on Twitter if you want to see that.
I am disappointed because I gave you the full green light on Twitter. I retweeted it for you to be able to actually use the dang things.
All right.
Yes. I'm so stoked for that.
The red one. They're a little bit hard to tell. But yeah, there's stunt sabers. They're actually things that you can use and hit with and sword fight and all that stuff like that. And there's a thing that can combine them together and make it 94 inches long.
Man, I'm so about this. You know what? I may not be the biggest Star Wars fan, but you got the best damn lightsabers I think I've ever seen. So I'm about it, and I'm here for it. And I'm sure that all of the listeners and followers and people watching this live are here for this content as well. John, I'm going to take the keys here from you and run through the banners of business. Guys, thank you all once again for joining the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. You guys can find us on Twitter at DVDD_pod. That's the podcast account. It's the easiest way to keep up with what's going on with the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. We shoot out early on Friday what we're going to be talking about, the conversation, be ready and yada yada, be ready to get in the room and stuff like that. You can find me at Sanderson MHH, and for Eric at Erick Trickel. Also, guys, while you're on Twitter and clicking those follow buttons, make sure you're following at Mile High Huddle. That is the mother account where you're going to get breaking news and analysis on your Denver Broncos, film breakdowns, opinion articles, everything regarding the Denver Broncos, and of course, the Huddle Up Podcast Network, which includes the Huddle Up Podcast, the Building Broncos podcast, obviously Dove Valley Deep Divers, and Mile High Insiders. Facebook users, go to facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and click the blue Become a Supporter button. If you do that, it's $5 a month. You're going to get premium content, including Kelberman's Corner and Eric's new show that's been up, 3 weeks, I think. It's called
the 4th week.
This is week number 4, the Trickel Zone. Eric, what's up on the Trickel Zone this week?
This week, we're going to be talking about the offensive line. I'm going to be breaking down my top 10 offensive tackles and then my top 5 offensive linemen. That's what it's going to be this week. So, guys, now's the time to go sign up and become a supporter on Facebook. I mean, the content right now, it's just growing. There's going to be a lot more shows coming. I know that Nick's talking about something. I know Lance is thinking about something. There's probably maybe something else in the works coming from me as well down the road. So just a bunch of stuff coming. Now's the time. And then after the draft, especially, it's going to be, there's a lot of stuff. Now is the time to become a supporter on Facebook and just to support us in additional ways. Awesome content there. lot of good stuff on Kelberman's Corner. And then, of course, the best Trickel Zone, where you get some really good insight into the draft and these guys. A lot more than you guys get here, too, really.
Yep. 12 p.m. Saturday for the Trickel Zone, 12 p.m. Sunday for Kelberman's Corner, where he does hot takes that actually hold water. They're just fun. It's a fun show, man. He really gets into it. Also, guys, another thing, if you're financially able and capable of doing so, another great way to show your support for the Huddle Up Podcast Network is to go to huddleuppod.com. That's the merch tent, guys. I'm a concert junkie, not a swag gear kind of guy. Get your merch. Get yourself a hat. Get yourself a t-shirt. There's a face mask. There's a coffee cup, a hoodie. There's a onesie for your baby if you want it. There's something for the guys, something for the gals, anything to suit your fancy, something to represent, obviously, the Dove Valley Deep Divers hat like I have. Every single podcast is on there. HuddleUpPod.com. Get your merch on. And if you're not able to do so, something that every single person should be doing that follows Mile High Huddle and the Huddle Up Podcast Network are these three things. Subscribe, wherever you guys are watching this, on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, does not matter. If you get it on Apple Podcasts after the fact, subscribe to Mile High Huddle. Like every video you guys see. And if you love it, share it. Get it out in front of as many Broncos fans as humanly possible. Those are the three easiest and most organic ways that you guys can help grow the Huddle Up Podcast Network. Also, while you're at it, leave a 5-star review and a comment. We like to read some of those every now and again. Zach and Chad have been doing some of that. There's some giveaways that are attached to those as well. 5-star comments on 5-star reviews and comments.
Praise, I love you forever.
Yes, absolutely. Also, hit us up on YouTube after the fact in the chat. We'd love to get with our YouTube commenters as well and talk with you guys after the fact. Again, on Twitter, find me at Sanderson MHH, and for Eric at Erick Trickel. For John Cronenberg at John K MHH. That's Bawana Beast. Shout out to John for doing great work behind the scenes. Eric, before we get out of here, are any last words?
Well, I think we should give a shout out to John, not just for the great work he's done tonight, but for the great work he did covering up on the for Chad on Huddle.
Yeah.
John, you really did a good job, man. You definitely deserve a show, and you have our support and everything like that, man.
Yep.
Like, John is definitely the underappreciated person of MHH.
Yeah, man.
He deserves all the love, guys, not us.
Yeah, it's great, to be able to go and run through the comment stream and stuff like that and look and see and read and try to interact with as many comments as possible. But John doing a great job pulling the supers, pulling up different comments that he's seen and making sure that everybody feels at least a little bit in tune with the show and like they're actually interacting with everybody here at Mile High Huddle. John is the linchpin that holds the podcast together, especially on Dove Valley Deep Divers. So we appreciate John. Now, guys, that's going to do it for us. Thank you all once again for joining the Dove Valley Deep Divers. You guys can find us on the same time, same place next week. Oh, wait, Eric?
Next week. Speaking of, we have a special guest coming on. We have a special guest coming on next week. So, guys, make sure you guys are here for that. Good friend of the podcast, Luke Polglace, he's going to be coming on to be talking about the cornerbacks in the draft, which, still may be an option for Denver. I mean, if you want, we can talk about that more on Twitter or something like that. But he's going to be breaking down some of the corners in the draft and giving a receiver's perspective on them. So it's definitely going to be interesting to hear what he has to say about these corners. So make sure you guys tune in next week.
Yeah, absolutely. And Luke, it's been a long time since we got a chance to get him on the show. Really looking forward to that. And Luke gives amazing insight. He did such a great job breaking down running backs and wide receivers last year. To see him as a wide receiver and running backs coach at a local community college, to get his breakdown of these cornerbacks and what he's looking at, what he's looking for, how their strengths and weaknesses is going to be just an amazing insight, guys. Make sure you get your super chats ready. Any of your questions for Luke. But for Eric, I'm Lance. Thank you all again for joining the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. We'll see you guys same time, same place next week, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. Y'all stay safe. Take care. Have a great rest of your weekend. And as always, go Broncos.